at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like if you're not taking risks, you're not competing.
It's empowering. I mean, anybody who's done a CrossFit workout, you finish your CrossFit workout and you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like a hunger for competition and like that super intense structure, routine. I still had that desire.
Listen to the way people feel and the motivations for doing the things that they did. It was like they were describing me to a T.
I'm not trying to solve everything for you, but I know that sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Learned the most is how to fill my cup by filling others.
Welcome to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Join me as I talk with passionate people about their life's failures and successes, and most importantly, what keeps them hungry for more. What's up, dogs? Welcome back to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. This week, I'm joined by Cam Burke, full-time trainer and also CrossFit competition MC. We talk about how he found the sport of CrossFit and his journey to picking up the mic for the first time. Finding CrossFit.
I live in the Merrimack Valley, not far away from where I grew up, but I've been born and raised outside of Boston.
Hell yeah. So I'll do an intro for the podcast like after we record. Like this will drop on Monday. So we'll like just flow into the episode and stuff like that. So dude, like I just said at the top of it, I want to ask you, like, what does your schedule look like on the week to week and like day to day? Do you do CrossFit full time? Like what's your schedule like?
So my full-time job is I'm a manager and a full-time coach at a gym called Spark Fitness and Andover CrossFit. So it's a big health club that offers personal training, small group training, some other styles of classes. We have a general fitness side. We offer tennis as well. And then we have a CrossFit affiliate inside that I manage and I'm in charge of. So that's my full-time gig. For me, I have kind of a mix of clients and classes. So it's like 50-50 roughly, a little bit more on the client side. But I start as early as 5 a.m. or 5:15 is our first class. And, I go as late as, it's pretty early. I go as late as like 7:30 or so. So some days are longer than others. But day to day for me, it's, I always start off, except for Wednesdays today, I start off with a workout in the morning, but I usually work out some class, whether it be the 8:30 or the noon, or we have open gym times in the afternoon from like 1 to 4. So I do CrossFit full time. I program. I do the programming at my gym. I take classes as much as I can because I also do the coaching development as well. So it's nice to see and be in class with other coaches, see how they do, take their classes. But it's also just fun to get a lot, being there with the community. It's really cool for them. And it's great for me because, I'm sure as busy as you are, if I just have an hour, like I need a good hour where I know I'm going to get warmed up. I'm going to get told what to do. I'm going to be able to go through the whole workout that I program or, me and my boss program. And I know no matter what, I'm done in 60 minutes because I have like some other stuff that I have to do day to day. And a big thing that I do like outside of like the coaching space is programming. I do remote programming for a couple people. I work with another company, me and my buddy Pete. It's called Made by Mason. And it's like online template stuff and then some other like individualized things. And then I have just like some back end stuff at work, reaching out to members, just kind of come up with like new and creative ways to kind of get people in and, keep people in and all that stuff. So there's more of like the managerial side. I just kind of fill in when I have certain gaps. The schedule is kind of all over the place sometimes, but it's pretty consistent. But yeah, it's pretty consistent. But some days there's bigger gaps in the middle. Like today, I don't have anything for the rest of the day, which is nice. Some days are like, easier mornings than, longer nights. Just kind of depends on the day. And I just kind of try to fit in, give myself like a good half hour to an hour doing certain tasks the way I'm not like losing my mind over it, but also I'm, focused on it for the most part.
Hell yeah. So I want to dive into like that stuff, break it down a little bit more like in a second. But first, dude, like on what you just said about like that 1 hour where you can turn the brain off, like that is my ultimate favorite part of CrossFit, right? Like,
yeah,
I got into it. I'm sure just like you and so many other people out there listening, like to have an exercise program where I didn't have to go to the gym and write out like what I was doing as far as like I was doing like bodybuilding stuff before that, right? Like,
yeah,
like so many people start off at, and like to be able to just take a class, the coach warms you up, the coach is going to tell you, hey, this is a stimulus, like this barbell should feel like 3 sets, like max, things like that. Like I want you to be able to get this done in this amount of time and then get some high five afterwards, like an hour where I can just like go and do. It's great, like that methodology still works. It's almost flawless.
100%. It is. It's flawless, and it's just such like the best part about it is that it works for anybody. Like
Right.
they say like CrossFit may not be for everybody, but it's for anybody. Like there's any type of people that can come in there, and that like 1 hour design and that methodology is good for people of all ages and abilities. People that are working out 3 times a week and rushing in between things. People that are old. People that have injuries, people, adaptive athletes, people with disabilities, people that are trying to go and make something out of the sport and get bigger and better and try to go on the big stages and compete and like that whole all of that stuff is based on that whole 60-minute program that they started back in 2007, 2008, even earlier than that. And it's still like, it still works. It's beautiful to see that it still works. And like you said, the best part about it is that like the community aspect, like you get the high five and hug it out at the end, and then you do it again the next day.
Right. You feel good. You get those good endorphins, right? Like something that myself and like my old gym owner and manager used to like talk about a lot, like have a lot of conversations around is like it's infinitely scalable. And in CrossFit, right, we think about it like scaling being lesser, right? Like dumbing down a workout, even though that's not what's really happening, right? But like in business, you would talk about scaling like being maximizing, right? Like doing more with what you have. So I think that's something that people need to start reframing, like when they're talking about scaling, like what it can actually mean for your exercise program, right? But so back to your timeline, right? Like you talked about 50-50 on like work clients versus like classes, right? What about like the business side? Like how much time do you think you allocate to those things, like you were saying, like reaching out to old members, reaching out to prospective people versus like on the floor working with classes versus like on the floor with clients? Like how do you delegate those different hours to those things to maximize them all?
So at the beginning of the week, I usually have a meeting with my boss, the owner of the CrossFit side of the gym. And that's what kind of like sets up the week, like what to do for the remaining, 4 days that I'm in the gym. So that helps out just kind of delegate like what we're doing. And it really just depends on the type of, or the time of the season or what season we're in or what time of year. Right now we're in like kind of like we're in like a big suburban area. So there's a lot of people that are coming back from being here in the summer, or they like moved away and came back, or they took some time off and they're coming back. And like, to me, and I always say is like
the settle in season where people are settling in, right?
Exactly. Yeah. People are settling in, they're getting back in the routine, kids are in school, or like, we even have some students that are back in school. So they come back this way, or they leave and go somewhere else. So I spend about like 8 to 10 hours roughly a week. And that also includes programming, but like regarding like the business side of things, like reaching out, just talking to people, thinking of like other new ways. Like we have like a beginner's track we're trying to kind of reframe. We have some other like things that, coming down the pipeline, like some events in November that like just small workouts. We're doing like Chad, and then we're doing another fundraiser workout. And then we have an event this week, and that's another fundraiser. So just like community events and things like that. And a little bit of that goes into the coaching development too. So I spent some time putting together a plan, because we meet every Tuesday at 1:30, and it's me and 4 other coaches that meet that are fairly new into coaching. And so I spent some time, I like an hour or two, just like programming. I just like kind of lesson plan and kind of plan out like, what do I want to, what are we going to go over? Like what drills are we going to do? Like that type of stuff. So
how many coaches do you guys have over there in total?
We have, I believe, like, let's see, 1, 2, I think we have like 8. We have 8 coaches right now.
Nice.
8 coaches, mostly part-time. So I'm full-time. My boss, I know the gym is full-time. She's also the director of fitness, the entire facility. And then we have 2 other people that are semi full-time. One of them, it works more in like the membership side of things for the entire facility, coaches a couple classes. And the other one is just like me, who she is like personal training, coaching. That's her main gig.
Nice.
And just started getting into CrossFit. So it's nice because we got a good mix of people and a good mix of coaches. And it is like a lot of part-time people that kind of fill in certain spots, but like they claim those spots, and that's like, we don't have to worry about them. But it's just trying to kind of get everybody, get everybody on the same page. Like it's really nice to see them like kind of come together, and we just like work on certain things and watch them apply it to class. It's really fun. It's like coaching athletes or coaching members. Like you tell them what to do, you say, hey, you're doing this, let's try this. And then you watch them apply, and then it works. Or it's like, okay, let's try something different. So that's like kind of like the mindset I go into it with, where it's like, these are drills and things that I have learned, but it might be more challenging for one of them to apply in a class. But it's like, try it. If you're like, hey, this is hard, like let's work on something else, or we can find like another way to kind of like dive into like themselves as coaches, like kind of bring out themselves and kind of find their like flow when they're coaching a class.
How often do you think like you said there's like 8 others, so 8 to 10 of you guys are all in the same room? Is there ever a time that happens?
We have a really like big crew, like a big community, which is nice, like within our staff, because we have other people that just train and do like other types of classes. They just do PT, or they just do like our other styles. So a lot of us are there all day. So there's on staff probably like 15 to 20 coaches right now, if I can off the top of my head. But like, again, it's like CrossFit has 8, and then the rest are just like PT. We call it like Spark Fitness classes. So it's like a couple different like styles of classes that we do in like our upstairs areas. They're like studios. And then we offer like some like not necessarily boot camp stuff. We call it like strength and sweat, where it's like more cardio related. Then there's like more of a strength session. So we have all those coaches too, but we're like at the gym all day together. It's hit or miss. Sometimes it's like everyone's there, like especially like in like the middle of the day, or like early in the morning, there's like a bigger group, or like later at night, there's a bigger group. But for the most part, from like that, like 8 to like 2 p.m. chunk, we're all there. So we do spend a lot of time together, which is really nice.
Hell yeah. So how long have you been doing CrossFit for in total?
I have been doing CrossFit for, it'll be 12 years. 12 years now. So since 12 years. Still can't do a strict handstand push-up, but it's cool. I'm still having fun.
Dude, some of the young bucks out there listening won't even know anything about 2012 CrossFit, right? Like what that stuff used to look like. The fits, the high socks, like no rope climbs or rope workouts.
Yeah, I started. Yeah, any of that. Well, even back then, because I started when I was like 17. So yeah, like 11, 12 years. So I started when I was 17, and I didn't even know anything about that back then. I just showed up because I was playing basketball. That was my sport. And my older sister was doing CrossFit with a friend at a local gym in Salem, Mass. And she was like, "Hey, come check this out in the off season because I need something to do." And I showed up, and there was just people everywhere because it was like a bigger gym that did more than just CrossFit. It was CrossFit Iron Spider, and that was actually where I first started coaching at. That was where I first started doing CrossFit at. So when I was like 17, I would just do 2 days a week, and I didn't snatch. I didn't go like overhead with barbells unless it was a strict press or a push press. I didn't do anything handstand related. I basically just I just want to be in shape for basketball. I was like, I want to get stronger, fit.
You want to be fit from like your knees to your shoulders to the collarbone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was like, I just want to be able to run faster, jump higher, and be more agile and just be stronger. And it certainly helped with that. But like going back to like that time when I was 17, like thinking now, like there's so many things that I just like not like refuse, but I just like. I don't need to worry about that. That's not going to help my jump shot.
I was going to say, were you like self-limiting, or do another coach tell you like, yo, don't do that stuff? Because like to me, like the overhead stuff would be where you would want to kind of like gear your training towards, right?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. Like they knew the direction that I wanted to go in, and there was just like some things and I only came on 2 days a week, so like there was a lot that I missed as well. And there was some stuff that I did, but like I never really snatched until after I quit basketball. I just like, I remember being in my first college that I went to their gym, and they got like somebody donated 2 platforms to the facility. And the ceilings were so low that when I did a clean and jerk, and I was like teaching myself how to do a clean and jerk, it was a popcorn ceiling. I was at like 95 pounds of the bar. I hit the ceiling, and like dust started coming down. And I was like looking around. I was like, "What's going on?" And then they were like, "Dude," they were like, "You can't do." They were like, "You can't do that in here." And I was like, "I guess I can't." I was like, "I don't want to hurt or break anything."
Oh,
and
man.
Snatching was fine because it's like the positioning. But so I was like, all right, I'll just learn how to snatch. And it was like squat snatching. I like did a power snatch, and the world's like slowest overhead squat, and they were like, not quite, but close. And I was like, all right. So when I went, like after I left my first school, I transferred back home to a closer school. I started going back to the same gym, CrossFit Iron Spider, because I went to school Salem State, and that was where I was like CrossFit every day. And there was like so many things that like, like everything from like handstands to like different, sweat jerk, push jerk, snatches, even just like being
like
on the rig with like toes above. The whole thing. Like I was doing everything. There was no limits. I definitely had like shoulder mobility issues just from playing years of playing basketball, everything in front of you. So that was like one thing we worked on. But I was like, there's no, unless I'm hurt or unless it hurts me or like I physically can't do it, I need to scale. There's like no limits on like what I should be doing. And that was like really when I got hooked. That was when I drank the Kool-Aid and I was all in.
So I'm going to ask you about like your first workout or the first one that really stuck with you in a second. But first I want to know more about like high school basketball, Cam. Like how big was sports a part of your life? Like tell me, who was your game compared to, right? Have you seen those comparisons like online? Like,
Yes.
oh, this is like the Idaho LeBron or something like that, you know?
Yeah. That's funny. So it was, when I was in high school, so I played basketball my whole life. That was everything. I grew up across the street from a basketball court, so I could walk. I was very, very fortunate where I grew up. I could just walk across the street any time of the day, not during the
Let's
winter,
go.
and just play. And it was the best. And my father, he would play with me all the time. Whenever come home from work, before work, whenever we were together, we would always play. I'd go to the YMCA. He was very hands-on with me playing, and I was like, those were like the best years because that was like everything to me. I wanted to play in college. I wanted to play, I had ambitions of playing overseas because I worked with some coaches and trainers that also played overseas, and they were big role models for me. And it was, amazing. And then where I grew up in my town, basketball was like the number one sport. Basketball and football were pretty big. Football was just, in the beginning of the school year, everybody's fired up. They're all back where everybody's together. So they're going to watch football all the time. And like my school had
what year did you graduate high school? This will tell me everything right here. What years were you in high school?
I graduated high school in 2014.
Let's go. There we go.
Yeah.
That's a great era of basketball.
Yeah. It was awesome. It was great. And then my high school was like in the state, like for ESPN Top 25, we were, 1-5, like kind of flopping back and forth. And we were like a well-known school. We were a much bigger school in my city that I lived in. We were like the biggest. So like basically like the more students you had, like the higher division. So if you're Division I, you have like 15 to 2,000 kids. So we would play bigger schools in the playoffs. And then we played like our conference. And it was just like, it was incredible. Like that was like my whole entire life. I played basketball every day forever. I haven't played in a little bit, but that was like everything that I did. And that was where like my love for like strength and conditioning came in, because that's what I did in the off season. And that was always really fun to me, because it was like, taking what I would do in the off season and then applying it to what I do, in sport, like actually seeing like, myself get faster, myself get stronger, myself like, at that age, I was very thin. I was like, for me, I was like under 185, but I was the same height of like 6'3". And so I was very lean, but I was like a growing kid. So like to see that I was like putting on muscle. And so like, see that like the extra stuff that I was doing that wasn't just dribbling a ball was being applied to, was like what I fell in love with, like, strength training, and then would eventually turn into CrossFit.
Did you have someone
so
that
was
a dedicated person to show you that stuff, or did you just introduce yourself to like the weight room and the barbell yourself?
So I started it was called Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. Nice. I started there when I was in like 7th grade. So Mike Boyle's been around for a long time. He's mostly like a New England guy. And, he's worked with like hockey players, basketball players, football players in all sorts of professional sports. And he is like kind of an OG when it came to like the like team and sport specific strength and conditioning. We actually have a few people that came from Boyle's that work with us now, and they're very smart and they're amazing trainers. So that was where I first started in 7th grade. And, it was very basic. It was like hang cleans one day, dumbbell snatches on the other day for like explosive stuff, front squatting, split squatting, a little agility work, sleds, ladders, bike work, bike sprints. Like it was very traditional strength training. And it was good because I just learned, like, you learn everything. You learn all the fundamental like patterns and all the fundamental movements, which then when like I went into CrossFit and they taught me it differently, it wasn't like, oh, this is how I learned. It was like, oh, this is like a new and different way to do it. And
just a progression.
It was a really cool process. Yeah. Just a different style of teaching it and like a different pattern.
What was the first CrossFit workout you did that like stuck with you, that like really put you on your ass? You're like, wow, I love this stuff.
The very first CrossFit workout I did that like really stuck with me, this was probably like my first like week or two of CrossFit, was Kelly. So 5 rounds of time. Man. Brutal. Yeah. Which that one ended up becoming one of my favorites, because I was like, I like wall balls, I like box jumps, I like running. But that was probably like, it was maybe like my 5th class. And it took me, that whole day that whole day like took me out, because I did that workout, like it was the 9 o'clock class, or the 9:30 at the time, at my gym in Salem, CrossFit Iron Spider. And so it's 5 rounds of time, 400-meter run, 30 wall balls, 30 box jumps. So they were like, hey, like wall ball, basically they were like, wall balls are good for you, you're tall. And I was like, sure, but a 20-pound ball for me. I was like, long, lanky arms. It wasn't a basketball by any means. And it was like, it was, the ball crushed me. And then the box jumps, I remember going to like 20 inches and like mixing in some step ups as I got like really fatigued. And the run was it was like advertised to me as like, this is a basketball player's CrossFit workout. And I remember being in the second round being like, this is not anything like that. I am smoked. Like 400 meters is a lot longer than a basketball court. This ball is much heavier than basketball. And I was like, and I can't even move my legs on the box jumps. But there was a woman next to me who, I forget what her name was, but she was pregnant and she was like 7 months, like 8 months, like still working out as her second pregnancy. And she had an 8-pound ball. So she was like biking instead of running. So when she was on the bike and I'd finish the run, I would grab her ball, her 8-pound ball, and do as many wall balls out of the 30 as I could. And I would just go, and then she'd come over and like tap me on the back, and I'd give it to her. I'm like, here you go. So I would be like, I'd rip off like 16, and then with my 20-pound ball, I was doing like 2s. Because I was, I couldn't move my arms. My legs were shot. My lungs were shot. My arms were just shaking. Hilarious. So I was like, "Thank you for letting me use your medicine ball when you're on the bike." And she thought it was hilarious. She was like, "You're doing great." And I was like, "This is my 5th class." And then I remember later that day, it was summertime. We had summer league basketball, and we only had 5 kids. So I played the whole game, and my team was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't even know where to start." I was like, I did all this stuff earlier, and I was like, you guys might not know what it is. If you do, great. I was like, if you don't, you just think I'm talking crazy. I was like, I did CrossFit. And they were like, huh? And I was like, yeah, see, I was like, I worked out this morning, and that's why I am playing absolutely terrible. Right? Yeah. That's why I can't get up and down the court or pick my arms up above my head.
That's crazy. I just saw the pearly gates, man. Just saw the other side throughout that workout.
I'm just glad I made it to the game.
Literally, my first CrossFit gym that I was a member of, that was their anniversary workout, Kelly. So they would do that every year, like in the springtime too, and just get destroyed by it. That workout will tell you a lot about yourself. You know, that'll tell you what your strengths and weaknesses are. You know,
yes,
so
no, for sure.
We were talking like also about your MC career, right? Like, so tell me, what was the first CrossFit competition that you ever saw? That you ever like attended in person?
My first one I ever attended was, I think the first one I ever saw, and I didn't really know much about it, was the Open. So like that was like my first like competition experience, like seeing one. But the first comp I like ever did was it's at the same gym in Salem. So this is where I started like coaching, competing, everything that I've done besides emceeing at this gym. And my first one, it was called Cougars and Cradle Robbers. Which they still do. So it's a co-ed comp where it's one person's over 40, one person is under 40. And it can be anyway. So it could be like female over 40, male over 40, or vice versa. And I did it with this woman, Debbie, who's still a member at the gym. She's awesome. She's a teacher in a small town like next to Lynn. And she's been a member at that gym ever since it opened up in 2007. And she's like half my size too. So like the workouts were like fun because like there's some synchro stuff we had to do, and it was really good. But that was my first like time I ever did a competition. So we did scaled, and it was a blast, and it was like a really fun thing. But like for me, that kind of like fired up like a little bit of like the competitive feeling for me, because I'm like, I was like, this is like really cool. Like like most people in the comp, like I PR'd a lift because I had all this adrenaline. Like I was able to like do like a little bit more on like one workout than I did before, because I was like, what is this feeling? Like I don't understand this. And it was just like the feeling of being in like the competitive space, like pushing yourself and having people around you that like to push you and support you, but also like trying to chase someone and trying like to not be chased, trying to like win basically in a way. So I got like obsessed with that. And that was where like kind of the bug came in for competing in CrossFit, where I continued with like some scaled comps, and then finally got to like RX comps. And then I started to do individual competitions, were more local ones, but I competed for probably like 4 years, I'd say, like 4 years. And by competed, I mean, like I would do the Open competitively. I would do, local comps and stuff, like individual ones, some online things, but that was like kind of like as far as I got with it.
Yeah. How did the team environment of like doing CrossFit comps, like even local ones and partner ones, compare to doing like playing basketball, right? Like as a team?
It was a much different feeling. And what I did like about it was like, when I grew up playing basketball, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and there was a lot of pressure on us because there was like the spotlight, and like I had opportunities with like colleges that were like, smaller schools, no big like Division Ones that were just like, offering like stuff like that. But it was an opportunity for me to like go and showcase it. And it was like something that like I played all year round, and I like loved and I was obsessed with. Where for like the CrossFit competition stuff, like that stuff started to come it took a little bit to come to, but it was always like, hey, we're going to go with like this, at a competition. Here are the workouts. It's entirely different than what I did for the last one. And it's like you train and train and train up to it. Like that's small, like window of training I got to do with like certain people because we would go and do the comps together, or it was like a partner competition. So it was, I always had another buddy, or like there's other people there with me that were like kind of going through the same thing, like the same, the same wins and the same woes. That there's workouts that are really hard, or the same wins, but there's workouts that are like really good for me. And that helped because like it created a lot more camaraderie, which was something that like kind of lacked when I played basketball. It created a lot more of like, it was, the pressure was off because it felt like I was like being more supportive and not like, I didn't have to beat myself up. Like I have to do this well. I have to do this well. I was like, I'm going to go, like, this is going to be fun. Workout 1, maybe a little tough for me, but workout 2 is like in my wheelhouse, and we'll see what happens with workout 3. But like, this is what we're going to do. Here's the plan. And I had many people that, supported like my plans of going to do like, whether it was a small comp or like a bigger individual one. And I had, a lot of people who would help me out, like training, if I was like in class and they're like, hey, if you're doing that comp next weekend, why don't you try this? And instead of this, like when we're doing this movement, like that type of stuff, instead of using like a 50-pound dumbbell, let's try a 70-pound dumbbell because that's what the workout has. Or like, why don't you try like touch and go with like a squat clean instead of like singles, because that's what you're doing in the competition. So like that kind of guidance definitely helped because there was a lot of it and it was all very helpful, but also like helped like mold me as a coach before I became a coach. And it like, allowed me to kind of create like my way of like competing, but also my way of like coaching in a way.
Hell yeah. So on that note, like, how did that come about? Like, how did you go from basketball player to CrossFit coach and then full-time like gym manager and all that stuff? Were you ever a coach before, like in your teen days? Did you ever like run basketball camps or anything like that?
So I never was a coach before until I started coaching. Well, coaching at this gym in Salem in CrossFit. I had that year, so I was 21 when I got my L1, and for like the 3 or 4 months leading up to my L1, I was coaching boot camp classes. So there's classes on the other side of the facility, and it was very, very like traditional boot camp, like warm up, kind of power exercises, start like a main lift, and then accessory, then like a short like little finisher. So it was like kind of a twist on like traditional strength and conditioning. And then I think it was like February of 2020. So I've been coaching for 7 years now. So 2017. Yeah, February of 2017 is when I got my L1. And then I like moved to the other side of the floor because it was a big open space, like kind of turf and like boot camp on one side and CrossFit on the other. And that was where like I was extremely excited because I was the school I was going to, the owner of the whole facility was my department head major. So I studied exercise science at Salem State. Steve Dion and Brandy Dion were the owners of CrossFit Iron Spider, and Steve Dion was the department head. So I like interned there for a little bit. And then when I got my L1, I started to work and coach there. And it was just filling in like anytime. It was just anytime I could fill in, hey, we'll have you take this class, we'll have you take that one. And like, as I was filling in classes, I was helping with the intro classes we had at night. So it was 6:30 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where it was a massive group of people. And it was like a beginners like class. So if it was your very first day, like you can attend those classes for free. But then also it was a combination of people that like kept coming to those classes, eventually got a membership. And then some people that just like, hey, 6:30 is my only time. So the programming was the same for all throughout. It wasn't different because it was a beginner's time, but it was me and another kid who interned. And then it was the head coach of the gym. His name's Gianni. And it was us three. So we kind of like, we coached those classes. And like my first experience of coaching CrossFit was like brand new people who had never done CrossFit before. And I would always make the same joke, be like, I'm new too. They're like, I've never done this before. And they're like, really? And I'm like, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm an intern. I just got my L1, 3 weeks ago, and today we're going to learn the snatch. And that was how it went. And it was great. And like, I remember teaching the snatches or like even cleans the first time. I'm like, just do this. And then some people would do that, or they'd be like, what do you mean? And I'm like, no, like this. Like, no sense of progressions or anything. I was just like, this is what it looks like. Start here, finish here. And they would just kind of either look at me crazy, or they would just do it great. And like 2 tries of the PVC pipe, and I'd be like, cool, barbells are over there, let's grab one of those. And it was like that. That's how it went already. Exactly. That's great. Yeah, go ahead, slap on some 45s, let's see what happens. Like
Shoot, trial by fire. So what are some of the things that you learned from running those big classes with the brand new people and the mixture of the OGs that only had that time to get to?
So for at least back then, because I like would specifically be with the new people, I like learned how to like kind of take my time and slow it down. And like eventually I understood that like not all people learn at the same rate. And some people might be, have never done any type of physical fitness, or some people they've done every other type of fitness. And they're like, CrossFit's like the one thing I haven't tried. I'd really like to. And it was learning how to teach people in different ways. And the coach would put the warm up on and then like go through the whole warm up, and I would just like keep my eye on like specific like 2 to 3 people, while the other intern had like their eye on like 2 to 3 people. It's just depending on like their like how far along they've been at the gym with us. Like they've been there for like a month or 2 months, and eventually we kind of like take up the training wheels, and then they're just like coming to classes and they're integrated like every other member. But like the brand new people were the ones that we were like following around the whole time. But what really I learned was like everybody learns in different rates, and there's like a million different ways to communicate. And it's like similar to just like cueing, where you can say squeeze your butt 1,000 times, but if they're not getting it, you have to find a different way to say it. You have to find a different way to show it. You have to find a different way to get them to do it. And that was with like everything. And that's like everything from, hey, we're going to grab PVC pipes to, hey, when you're in your deadlift position, I want to see you pull your shoulders back. This is where I want your hips to be, like kind of guiding them that way. And it gave me like this like style of like beginning to slow it down, but then just like taking my time with teaching things, because everyone learns at different rates. And it was almost like I learned at this rate. Like I know like when I'm being coached, if a coach comes over to me, like they can get real nitty gritty with me. But granted, I just went through a whole certification. I'm in school for this. I've been working out for a while. Some people come in, and that's why like, I actually had this meeting with my coaches yesterday. Like when you're verbal cueing, keep it short and keep it like actionable. Keep it something that's so simple that they know nothing but to do what you said, because they're like, oh, that makes sense. And that was where like I really learned like my kind of like my communication style of coaching, and really just my communication style in general.
That's awesome. So, like in 2024, right? Like so much information is available to everyone, right? It's like already out there. So like just having the information won't make you a good coach, right? Like it's
exactly
about how you communicate it to others and like what you do with it, right? Like how do you keep refining your tool set to share information with other people? When you work with a lot of new coaches, right? Like doing coach development, what are some like traits that you look for in someone that wants to be a coach that'll tell you like this person has a lot of potential? These are opportunities that I think they have to work on. Like, what do you look for in new coaches?
I mean, really, the biggest thing to look for, and like we're super lucky that we have it, is just like the will to just work hard. Like the will that coaching 3 classes in a row is really hard. And that third class might be really tough, but being able to like have the same like presence and attitude that's so important in your third class than you do your first class is like the biggest thing that like we can preach and we can do, because like people like good people, they like nice people, they like fun people, but like they want to learn and they want to grow and they want to get better. But if you're someone who is like, mundane, or someone who it sounds insulting, but like mundane, someone who's just kind of like, just goes through the motions, someone who just kind of shows up and, is like, gets there at 2 minutes before class and then leaves 60 seconds after class, like that type of stuff. And that's like hit or miss, sometimes I get it. We're busy. Like we have like hour after hour, like, sometimes I have clients right after class. I'm like, all right, good job. Boom, fist bumps. I got to go over here. And like, that's like a lot of the people that we work with too. But like, it's always one of those things where it's like, you may not like lack, you may lack the knowledge, you may lack like the expertise, you may lack like what you do in a specific class. But if you're willing to keep showing up, keep working at it, listening, going the extra mile to learn these things and understand these things, the way the next time you come back, you know a little bit more and you're a little bit better about it, then that is like all we can ask for as coaches, because I mean, as you know, like to be a CrossFit coach, you don't need you don't need a degree. You don't need a degree in anything. You just need to pay the $1,000 and show up for your L1. And I know a lot of CrossFit coaches who had an entirely different career. They had no knowledge in coaching or in fitness. And then they just fell in love with CrossFit with doing it, that they were like, I want to become a coach. And then they become full-time or part-time, or they get more involved in the space. And they just spent the time learning about how to become a better coach, learning about movement, learning about communication with people, learning about different types of fitness, learning about Olympic weightlifting, gymnastics, learning about all types of CrossFit that you may see from like, kids classes to the competitive level. So that's like the biggest thing that like we, even just for like hiring coaches in the space anywhere, that's like the biggest thing that people look for, I think.
For sure, people that are going to create buy-in because they are wholeheartedly committed to it, right?
Exactly.
To it from start to finish. Like the coaches that I call like a clock starter coach, people that are just there to start the clock for the workout. They just kind of weed themselves out already on their own. So back to our MC talk, right? Like what makes you pick up the microphone? What's the first comp that you ever did that at? First space or event you've ever did that at? Tell us about that.
So my very first comp I ever did was the Invictus Boston Invitational. And that was right in the middle of 2020. So that was like in the heat of things with COVID. We had to do the whole event outside. And it was Bern Prince that runs the Invictus Invitational. He's done a fantastic job.
Bern.
Yeah, shout out to Bern. He's done a fantastic job the last 5 years. And he actually has his first team comp this upcoming Saturday that I'll be at too, called the Champion City Classic. So that was my very first time doing it. So he wanted to run a competition in the middle of COVID, and really what the invitational is like, it's about like inclusivity in the sports, like people of all, ages, size, abilities, different ethnicities, they can come into the sport and have this one place where they can like showcase their abilities, and it's a safe space and people are going to support you. And that's like, he's done a really good job of that. So it started off in 2020 and it was outside because it was right in the middle of COVID. It was July of 2020. And when he was sending out like assignments. So basically I told him that I was like, whatever you want me to do, let me know. I was like, just told him like one day at work, I was like, I'll be there. I was like, I'll judge equipment, you let me know. Like, I didn't even know like being an MC was like a thing at the time. And he like sent out an email. He's like, here are the assignments. And I saw it was like Cam MC. And I was like, oh, and I was like, he wants to give me a microphone. I remember I was like, Bern, are you sure? And he was like, of course I am. So I just took it and I ran with it. I had no like prior experience. And like, I feel like it took me a little bit to like understand like the importance of the MC, because I remember just being like, I don't even know what the MCs are saying. And any of the comps that I've done before, like, I don't even know if I hear them, like, because you're, deep in the danger zone in your workout. I don't even know if I hear, like, I hear 3, 2, 1, go, 3, 2, 1, stop. Like, that's what I hear.
And then blackout. Yeah.
And then that's it. Yeah. That's it. So that was my very first comp, and it was all outside. Beautiful day, super hot. So I got like super sunburned because I was just running around, running my mouth on a mic, and I had a ton of fun with it. It was 2 workouts, one that involved cleans and echo bike, and then another one that was like burpees, dumbbells, and rowing. So it was very much like something you can do like outside in the horse stall mat. It was really good programming for kind of the circumstances. And it was great. Like, we caution taped off the whole area. We had like a bunch of mats laid out, and that was like the very first invitational. And he invited people from everywhere. And basically it was like, if you could safely get there during COVID, you could. And there was a lot of people from like local gyms, most people from Invictus. And then it just grew into like a much bigger, so much cooler like event. Like, he's done like, elite divisions in RX, he's done masters, he's done teams, he's doing teams again. Like, so it's kind of done like everything, but that was my very first event, my first experience emceeing. And I fell in love with it, but there was like no other opportunities because it was COVID. So I basically just waited until the next year, and I did it again. And then I think it was my 3rd time doing the invitational, where I was like, I'm going to try and see, where else I can get to with this. I'm going to try and see if there's like other places that like want an MC for a comp, or like, I'm going to see what I can get out of this. And it's been a pretty wild journey ever since, if I'm being honest.
Hell yeah, dude. Did you prepare at all for the invitational since that was your first one? Like, what were you doing in the days leading up?
Honestly, the only way I prepared for it was I had a buddy that lived down the street, and I was like, yo, I need your sun hat. Like, I need your like cowboy hat. It was like a cowboy sun hat. That was my only preparation. I was like, it was a friend of mine, Zach, who I lived in Brighton at the time. It's right outside of Boston. And he lived right down the street. And I was like, can I borrow your sun hat? And he was like, I guess so. And it was a big straw hat and I wore, and I was like, all right, cool. I was like, that's it. And then he gave me the sheets, and like, I knew who was in what lane. Like, I knew what the workouts were. And I kind of like, I was like, just, call the action, say what people are doing, like, look at the clock, right? And just make sure the clock's right. And then I was just like, just have fun with it. And I just remember I was like, don't talk too much, which is hard for me sometimes. And I was like, don't be silent. And I just had fun with it. I would go in the crowd and find random people and just be like, "What did you think?" And then just like put the mic in their face, and they're like, "Oh, like just it was so cool." And I'm like, "Wasn't it?" And I just walk away. I'm like, "All right, that was it." It was pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just like no, I did nothing to prepare. And then like compared to what I do now, back then I just like showed up and I was like just made sure I was able to speak.
That's legit though, dude. That's awesome. So then you got to wait for like COVID to cool off a little bit, right? Like for the
Yeah.
world to open back up and stuff. What's the next event you do that's not the Invitational?
I did two. So I did one summer. It was called Fight the Darkness. So it was actually at the gym that I work at now before I started working there. So I was working at another gym in a different town in Mass before I started at Spark, where I am now. And I would I'd get in trouble if I didn't mention it, but that's where I met my girlfriend of 2 years that I live with now. Her name's Kate. She's the best. My boss and one of my really good friends, Kelly, she was there, and I messaged her. And I told her, I was like, hey, if it was like, I'd love to come volunteer. If you'd love me to be on the mic, I will. But if not, like, I'll come judge or I'll come hang out, because it was, we still do this comp to this day. It is a fundraiser for families that have been impacted by Alzheimer's. So they help with like the funds for, treatment and for, housing, for like assisted living housing and stuff. So it's a local foundation, and it was something that kind of impacted a lot of people at the gym. So we started this fundraiser, and it's a competition every July. So I reached out to her, and she's like, "Oh my God, you got to come down." And she's like, "We'd love to have you on the mic." And she was like, Kelly, my boss, she's like, "We can split it and like do some other stuff." Cause like they need help with judging and whatnot. But I stayed on the mic the whole time. And I just remember they gave me like a headset, like a Spin Studio headset, which was great. And then like a fanny pack with like my notes in it. And I was like, I peaked. I was like, this is peak emceeing right now. I had this like headset on, like my fanny pack here, and it was super fun. But it was a little nerve wracking at first because it was like an entirely different environment than what I've been used to. And it was a lot different. Like it wasn't different like competitors. Like I knew a lot of people that competed because it was all local gyms that I had known and I had friends at. But it was just like a different environment, like kind of the stipulations. Whereas like the Invitational, I was very comfortable there. I knew like what to say, how to say it. I knew like where to be. Like I knew what I was looking for. But here I just kind of showed up, like learned the workouts that morning, like got the team names that morning, just kind of read through. And it was great. It was so much fun. And it was a really, really good time. We still do the comp to this day, 3 years running, and it's a huge success. So that was like my next one after the Invitational. That was my next one.
That's dope. Freaking, I love those headphones, those like overhead headset things, man.
Yeah.
The way I got my start in fitness, the first thing that I did, like trainer certifications, was like the Les Mills, like body pump kind of stuff in like
that
small commercial gyms. And you got to like film yourself working people through a routine with no one in front of you. You get the freaking overhead thing, man. I'm thinking about getting another one. Those things are cool.
We still use them for our studio classes too upstairs, because it's like it's a little bit like a louder room. The music's a little louder, and it's like we have like all these different like color, like not strobe lights, but like different color lights. So it's a really cool environment. And the headset just makes it honestly makes it easy for like them to coach upstairs in that kind of environment. And I've even seen some CrossFit gyms that are like so lucky to be as big as they are that they need to use a headset to like reach people in the room, which is crazy. And I'm like, it works well. It's a great tool.
I love that. Freaking like not limiting yourself to like, hey, this is how every other gym does it, like growing right back to that scaling up thing that we were talking about from before, Yeah. So tell us, like, it's been like 4 years now. Tell us like some highs and lows of being an MC. Like, what's some of your favorite moments where you're out on the floor with the mic in your hand? What are some of your moments where you're like, oh man, I said something pretty dumb right there? You don't have to go into full detail, but tell us.
Yeah, there's, I've been lucky where there's definitely a lot of highs, and like the lows are like, just as you said, like sometimes you get mixed up, like missing a call when like somebody like wins a heat, or like you're saying the wrong team name, and then like the team that's winning is like a different, team name. And then you're like, it's like kind of awkward after that. But like, that's something I really focused on, like getting better. But like some of the biggest highs that I've had are, local stuff is great, because like I get to see like my friends compete, and I get to see how hard they train and like building up to it. And one of the local events I've emceed at 3 times is called the Southeast Showdown, and that is a local competition where that was like my CrossFit games when I competed. That was like what I trained to do. So it was really cool to go back.
It's big up in that area.
It's a huge event, and it was really cool to go back and be in that environment in a different way and like see people that are like coming there and like they work their ass off and they've trained so hard for it, and like seeing like the rewarding feeling and like being able to like hype them up on the mic, and they're like, it just kind of, that's like the whole purpose of it, is like to hype people up, just like keep people like in the know of like what's going on. But it's also like, I love when, there's like big lifts going on, and like at Southie when there's big lifts and like you call out people's names, everyone's watching them and they get fired up. It's just like such a good feeling. So that's like locally like some of like the biggest highs and like biggest highlights. But I would have to say, a lot of the bigger events that I've done in other places, Wodapolozza and Metcon Rush are two events that I did. Metcon Rush was the very first like event that hired me. They were the first event in Maryland that hired me. Tim and Becca, who run it, they own a gym, CrossFit 301 Elite, and they are just
shout out to Tim.
Shout out to Tim and Becca. They are fantastic humans, and they do a phenomenal job at Metcon Rush. I've done it twice now, and they were the first ones that I had a phone call with Tim, and it was just kind of one of those like scenarios where I messaged Tim on the Instagram, on their Instagram page, was like, hey, if you're looking for an MC, I'd love to chat. And he was like, dude, our other MC just canceled this morning. He goes, can you hop on a call tomorrow at like 2? Ooh. And I was like, yes. I was like, I booked it, blocked it up. I went outside, and he was like, we'd love to have you come down.
Let's go.
Can you come down this day and stay till this day? Like, hotel, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is what we'll do. And I was like, Lord, I would like remember just being like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And that kind of like opened up the floodgates where I got Asbury Park after. It was actually, Asbury Park was the week before Metcon Rush, but Metcon Rush like kind of hired me first. And then I was able to go to like Asbury Park from that. And then I met other people at other comps, but Metcon Rush is like the competition that like I hold on to like so close to my heart, because that's like what really, on top of the invitational, like giving me the opportunity to be on the mic and being able to showcase this and being able to like basically discover that I was like, I'm good at this and I love it, and this is something I want to pursue. Metcon Rush kind of put me in that stage with like people where I was with like, big name elite athletes, and it was like a big professional setting with like, the whole like 2 stages and like the different like, floors, and like the whole like professional, like everything runs to a T. Like, here's like all the information you need. Like, they gave me like a staff shirt. I was like, wow. I was like, the whole, it was just like, so it was a professional event that like they
Let's
do.
go.
Like, it's like the real deal. It's the real deal. It was like the big leagues. And I'm like forever grateful for them, because once I had that opportunity, that kind of was like, okay, like I was like, I think I can do this. I think I can go and MC anywhere really. And that kind of eventually led me to Wodapolozza, because the week before Metcon Rush, I was at Asbury Park, and I met Dylan Malitsky, who he runs Loud and Live. He runs Wodapolozza, and he was like, I'd love to have you come down. So Asbury Park was the same thing too, where it kind of like gave me the confidence where I was like, I think I can do this anywhere. Like, I was able to work with Dylan, who gave me good feedback, who's been doing it for years. He's like one of the best ever to do it. And it was like this like back-to-back weekends in August where I was like, I am really good at this. I was like, I love it. It's something that I want to do every weekend if I could. And, one event turned to 2 events turned to 3. And then all of a sudden I'm in Miami at Wodapolozza, and I'm, in the middle of Flagler Stadium, or I'm on Tina Hills, or I'm on a dock in the middle of the ocean while people are slamming worms and swimming. And I'm like running my mouth on the mic. And it's like such a surreal feeling. To be able to get all these opportunities and like all these different places. They all are run by really, really good people who care about the sport and who care about the athletes and care about the community. And it's really fun to be a part of that, because it is something that still like, it still allows for CrossFit to like have the name that it does. Like what people started CrossFit for, everyone starts CrossFit for a reason, but like those athletes and like these events really show like how much of like a bond like the community has all over the world. And like CrossFit's their common language, and competing is their common language, and being together is like a beautiful thing to see. And like being able to be on the mic and be on the floor for that is just a feeling that is very hard to replicate. It's awesome. It truly is.
Yeah, it's sick, dude. Like, keep chasing the dream, like
Thank you.
It makes it so like it never goes away, right? Like the flame keeps growing,
It does. And it's like, I hope it never stops. I truly, like, it's something I want to pursue forever and just be able to keep doing. And like you said, the flame keeps growing, and I just want it to grow until it can't anymore. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Were you working this past weekend? Were you at Fight for the Fittest?
I was down in Fight for the
Hell
Fist,
yeah.
Long Island. Shout out to Sam and Kelly. They're also fantastic people. They work super hard in this event, and it was really cool to be there because it was at the Suffolk Federal Credit Union Arena, and
Yeah.
it was Suffolk Community College. So it was like their big arena. They had 2 stages, and they just like outdid themselves. It was, I mean, everyone that they had on the staff was great. Sam and Kelly put so much like work into it and so much heart, and it showed, throughout. And everyone just had such a good time. The events were really fun. They were really fun to watch, really fun to call. They had a lot of like different ranges of athletes. They did scaled, they did teams, they did trying to think what else they did, or teams of 4, they did teams of 2, they did like elite division, RX division, they did like a kind of a whole bunch of different divisions and whatnot. And so that was cool to see. Like that's like also like a really fun thing about competitions. Like there's so many different levels of like ability, and to showcase it, kind of like giving everyone the big stage and giving everyone the big floor and allowing them to showcase their abilities like all in the same way as like the scale does for elite, and Fight for the Fittest did a really good job of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It looked like it was a best year yet, like definitely their biggest year. And
it
looked like everyone had a great time. What was I just going to say that when comps and events can pull off the like community vibe where like both the elite teams or individuals are going and like the community scaled and intermediate groups, like it's always a great thing to see, have
it
everyone
is
working out together.
yeah, and that's like the important part too, where it's like a lot of people like come to see the elite because it's their opportunity to see the best in the sport, and that's an amazing thing to see because the sport has grown so much in that way where you get to see some like unreal stuff. Like we had a kid, Joe Piero, who's hang snatched 300 pounds. And It was awesome. It was crazy. He hang snatched 300 pounds twice. It was part of a complex, and he missed the second snatch, unfortunately. But
Damn,
he hang snatched 300 pounds, and like that was just like a weekend in Long Island where he was with some buddies and just wanted to have fun. Where like think of like how much more like on the bigger stage, like how much more the sport has to grow when you have those moments. And even like for Scaled, like Scaled was doing like synchro toes to bar and like had pull-ups and was like using like heavier weights, and it's like this is awesome because like it's like the sport is like people are getting fitter, people are getting better, and they're showcasing their abilities that they are getting better, that they are getting fitter, and it's a really cool thing to see.
For sure. Dude, anytime you see a 300 pounds going to barbell for a snatch, it's going to be electric in that building. It's awesome.
Yeah, that was a cool moment.
So last few questions here. First, nonsense fitness question, right? Tell me, what do you think is the most impressive for a guy like to be able to do? A 400-pound front squat, a sub 6-minute mile, or 10 strict ring muscle ups, unbroken?
I gotta say, I think that the strict muscle ups unbroken, 10 strict. I gotta say that.
Let's go.
I think that requires the most strength and skill and body awareness and ability than running and squatting. I mean, being able to squat 400 pounds is crazy. And either way, being able to run a sub 6 mile is incredibly impressive. But like a muscle
all displays of athleticism, like for sure.
Yes, yeah, exactly. All displays of athleticism, strength, mobility, skill, everything is all. Yes, I would say the 10 strict muscle ups.
Hell yeah. I've been asking this question for like a few weeks now, right? Like
it's a great question.
Trolling people with the answers. All
running bias, like for the muscle up, is they probably came to your gym and they learned it there that day, where like if somebody does have a gymnastics bias, maybe they have some like some like previous notion to being able to do muscle ups and like good pulling strength and pressing strength. But that's something where like that takes a lot of time to learn. And now it's like, like the gymnastics, the hardest thing. It's like you get your first one, then it's all right, let's try to get 2 in a row. Now 3, now 4. And then the higher you go,
and now we're up to 10. That's what I'm saying. Right?
Now we're up to 10. Yeah. The more like efficiency and the more like, strength is required. It's pretty impressive.
That person put some time in for sure. Next question that I ask everybody, man, like, what are you hungry for right now? What's motivating you?
Really what's motivating me is just to keep on just doing what I'm doing for my people that I love. I am very close to my family and my girlfriend of 2 years that I live with. And I just want to keep, getting better at everything that I do in order to just be better for them is always my thing. Like I want to be good for the people around me because I want them to be good too. So the biggest thing with that is just like becoming a better person. We'll put it overall. Being a nicer guy when I can, being a better coach, trying to be a helping hand when I can. With these MC gigs, just reaching out and trying to get to places as often as possible when it makes sense, when the time's right. But like, what motivates me is that I'm super fortunate to have the people around me that I do. And, I want to be the best for myself so I can be the best for them. And that's what motivates me, the most in all my aspects in life that I do.
Hell yeah, dude. You got to work on yourself, right? So you can help other people,
That's right. That's right.
do the work at home. Well,
For
Cam, it's
sure.
been a great episode, man. Talking, chatting all about old school CrossFit stuff and just the
Yeah.
journey. It's
Thank
awesome,
you.
man.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm excited for this to come out.
Hell yeah, dude. Dogs out there, thanks for tuning in. Cam, where are you at next, man? Where are people going to see you? Do you have anything booked?
So just this upcoming weekend, October 5th, I'll be at Invictus, the Champion City Classic. And then after that, I'll keep you posted. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe not until next year. It's going to quiet down a little bit. But until then, I'll just be coaching at Spark in Andover. Shout out to my Spark fam, my Andover CrossFit fam. You guys are the best.
Shout out.
And just be kicking it here and having a good time.
Hell yeah. Well, all right, dude. Thanks again for coming on. I'm going to cut off this recording here. Dogs out there, thanks for listening. Peace.
See you later.
Yes.